You're listening to the West Ham is Why We Drink podcast. Like hanging at the pub with your West Ham mates. On this episode, we explore drunken tales with a special guest in our new segment, the half-hour happy hour. Now let's fill our glasses and go for a wander down the claret and blue memory lane. And welcome to episode 39 of West Ham is Why We Drink, a very different podcast this evening because you won't hear any screaming because Adam's taken a night off.
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Which is really going to be fun for me. I won't be deaf by the end of this show. Doing something a little bit different tonight. We've been chatting about maybe doing some one-on-ones with people, and so I thought, let's use this as an opportunity. So since we're between seasons, we thought now would be a good time to do it. And I'm often asked by people, where's the best pub to go to if you're going to go watch West Ham, and what was your favourite victory drink? And so our idea is basically to share all of that with you as we chat with some fun West Ham characters. And we'll be sharing some fun drinking stories and reliving some of the past. And, what can I say? West Ham is Why We Drink is the name of the podcast. And today it's all about West Ham is Why We Talk on the half-hour happy hour.
And then we'll drink some more. We'll dance and sing and fight until the early morning light. Then we'll throw up, pass out, wake up, and then go drinking once again. Then we'll throw up, pass out.
Today, our guest has been, I was going to say he's been a fan for donkey's years, 43 years to be precise. He hails from Canning Town, which is also where Mark Noble's from, of course. But most of you will know him for organising the incredible West Ham Way USA event in Vegas last year. So join me in welcoming to the podcast one of the most prolific farters of all time, John Black.
Good evening, Wayne. How you doing?
I'm doing brilliant, mate. Let's start this off the right way. What you drinking? Come on, I heard the ice chink.
I've got some Bullier bourbon on the go here. I'm at my in-laws' condo, just down the street from us. They've retired back to Utah. So I've come down here. My father-in-law has kindly left all his good whiskey down here. So,
oh, blimey!
And I spoke
How come
to
I
him.
don't have in-laws like that? I'm sipping on a nice pint of. It's not even a pint. It's not a proper imperial pint. That's for certain. It's one of those cans of Guinness draft.
Oh, very nice.
It's doing the job, but it's not the same. I miss being in the pub, mate. I really do. I really miss going to the pub. So,
Yeah.
and the way things are in Texas, I don't know when that's going to happen again. To be quite frank.
I've not been out and about since March 17th.
Yeah, you know, mate, about the same time.
Yeah.
It's, I think you've got kids, right?
Uh-huh.
You have to be smart. You have to be smart.
That's it. It's not worth taking a chance just for a couple of pints. And our state governor passed alcohol delivery as okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's brilliant, isn't it? They did it in Texas.
What a time to be alive.
So anyway, I said you've been a West Ham fan for 43 years, right?
Yes, mate, yeah.
How did you get into it? Was it obviously by birth, right?
My dad was in the army, and my mum moved over to Germany when he was stationed there. I was born out there, and my grandparents come over to visit, but my granddad had a cold. So the doctors and the nurses wouldn't allow him to hold me when I was born, and this is December 76. So granddad sneaked back into the hospital after hours and put a scarf in my crib. And my dad found it the following day. And well, my old man's a big football fan, but he's a horse racing man.
Yeah.
So my old man never took me to football because he'd finished work at around noon on a Saturday. He was a fruit trader up in Covent Garden and Spitalfields later on. Yeah. And he would go to the pub and watch racing in the afternoon. So he would never go.
Trying to get a winner on the old ITV7, was he?
Oh, yeah. He used to do all right, and still does, and many electric bill back in the day was covered by Desert Orchid. So it was, so that's my story. So basically I had no real choice. I was either christened or cursed, whichever way you look at it. And it's my earliest memory of West Ham was the 80 Cup final. Sat in my nan's living room with my aunt watching the game, and I don't remember anything about the game at all. I mean, I was 4, but I remember my aunt, we were saying, we were shouting, we've scored, and my nan coming out the kitchen telling her to be quiet because my brother, who was a baby, was asleep. And that's my first West Ham memory, that is. My granddad wanted to actually take me to the game.
Well, when was the first time you actually went to a match at the old Boleyn?
1981.
Do you remember who was playing?
I want to say it was Villa, because I don't remember anything about the game. I remember we used to go to the Anchor in Canning Town. So I was sat outside the Anchor, which is now no more.
Isn't that sad that all of the old pubs have disappeared?
Well, yeah. I mean, this one disappeared because of there was a shooting in there related to the Essex Boys case.
Oh, gosh.
And, the police closed it, and it never reopened. It's not anything, as far as I know. My cousin still lives around there, and he just said, he said, I'm popping past the Anchor, not popping in the Anchor, popping past it. Yeah, the Royal Oak closed. That was another family local. And then, but we used to, my aunt lived in Plaistow, so my granny would have a quick pint in the Anchor. We'd get the bus up Barking Road, and then we'd stop at the Abbey Arms, another classic East End boozer. It's still open to my knowledge, the Abbey.
I don't remember an awful lot about being in them, to be quite frank, because I was usually half cut by the time I'd made my way all the way from Wimbledon to the East End.
My real memory of going to actually getting into a routine was 85, 86. That was the first.
Oh, those were brilliant years.
Yeah, that was. I mean, if I was my age now in 85, I think I would have drank myself to death. Because it was so good. I mean, I didn't really understand. I was 8. But I remember what we used to do was Granddad would start the Anchor, then we'd get the bus to the Abbey Arms, and then we would walk up Barking Road. And you would get to kind of like where the bowling, Barclays Bank there, and then you'd have the bowling on the corner. You start seeing the police horses and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And all the horse shit on the floor. That sort of stuff, and then
you don't forget the smells of it, do you?
Oh yeah, it was always bizarre to me why just people would show up there at 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
and then my granddad knew someone on the turnstile, so I'd be sneaked in. We'd be on the North Bank. We was always North Bankers. First barrier behind the goal. I was just under the eye line of crossbar. Yeah, that was the first season I really remember. But we had kind of more of an after-match routine rather than a pre-match, because what we'd do is we'd leave the ground and then we'd be walking down Barking Road because there'd be loads of traffic and stuff, so there's no point getting a bus or anything. So Granddad used to stop in the Abbey Arms and he used to give me some money to run round to the chippy, knowing full well there'd be a line out the door.
So he could get a couple of quick ones in.
Yeah, well, I'd be stood there about an hour. So Granddad would keep an eye out the window, see if I was all right. We knew everyone in the queue anyway.
Yeah.
Good. So I'd pick up the fish and chips. He'd finish his pint and then or pints, and I would then we'd walk back down to Nan's house and have our fish and chips and watch the A team. Well, I kind of we knew everyone around us. You've got this carry on with the new stadium and stuff. I mean, I'm bored of talking about this new stadium and everything else.
Oh, I'm done with it. It's history now, mate. We're there, whatever.
It is what it is. It's West Ham now. Take it or leave it. But there were people that refused to go back to Upton Park when it went seating.
Yeah.
Never mind no Upton Park anymore.
I remember that.
There was a guy behind us. I never forget him. He'd always say, hello, how you doing? He'd offer, he had a bag of sweets he'd offer me, and he was just a genuinely nice guy. He was still on his own. Granddad knew him. And I said to him, do you know that guy's name? He goes, no. He said, I've seen him here for 20 years. And they'd talk as if they were going around each other's house for Christmas. Yeah. And it turned out the guy lived in East Ham, we lived the other way, in the Barking Road, and after that Southampton game in '93, I never saw him again.
Blimey!
And a lot of the old characters died with a terracing, and it was weird. I kept expecting to see the same crowd in the Bobby Lower,
Yeah.
the following season, because that's essentially where the North Bank went.
Yeah.
But I just didn't see those people ever again. And I bumped into one guy, tapped me on the shoulder. He said, "Are you the guy who used to stand in the North Bank?" This was years later in a
Yep.
pub at West End. I said, "Yeah." And the West Ham were playing a away game. I said, "Watching it." He goes, "Oh, yeah, I used to stand," and he described his group of mates, and I remembered it. But I said, "Where'd you sit now?" He goes, "Oh, if I go, I'll get a ticket wherever I can." It wasn't, when you had to get he likened it as when you had to get a ticket, it didn't matter. When you didn't have to get a ticket, you had to get there early to get your
Yeah.
spot, and that's how the atmosphere grew. That's why the atmosphere in Italian games and German games still exists, because there's unreserved seating behind the goal.
I mean, I used to love that. I mean, I remember getting pushed up against the old, the iron bars that were across on the terraces. I remember getting like shoved up against them, and that my granddad would be like, "Come on, John, give us a hand, get me nipper up so he doesn't get killed down there."
The game I really remember is Southampton at home, Hillsborough Disaster Day.
Oh God, yeah.
You had the guys there with the radios and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They'd be, this one guy was the most annoying guy on the planet. He used to commentate on the games going on around us. So then he was like, "Oh, there's been a riot at the FA Cup semi-final." So everyone was like, "Oh, what, Liverpool again?" and all this sort of stuff, because it was just after Heysel, or not long after Heysel.
Yeah.
And he distracted everybody, and a 17-year-old Alan Shearer scored in front of the North Bank.
Oh, blimey.
When you sort of put the whole thing into context of how different football was then, Alan Shearer's now on the telly, 50-odd, but he was 17 on that day, and football changed forever that day.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah, it's so weird, because I remember getting home and my mum had it on the news and she was crying and all the rest of it. I mean, there weren't enough people at Upton Park to crush anything back then. There was no one there.
That's like your childhood going to the matches. How about when you started going with your mates? So, want to do any shout-outs to any old mates that you used to get into some bubble with?
Oh, yeah. A lot of my mates, the Warrington brothers, Rich and Dave, good friends of mine. We used to drink in the Duke of Edinburgh on Green Street.
That was a blinder of a pub.
Yeah, that was my adult pub from like '97. Served Carling Premier, like 5-6 pints before the game. Go and watch the game, and then.
Can you do 5 or 6 pints now?
God, pints of water.
You could do them, but would you know it?
I do. I've known it for 6 months, I'd say.
Yeah, me too. When I think about then, I remember I used to leave the match, and we used to drink at the Queen's afterwards.
Oh yeah,
and,
I didn't mind the Queen's. It was a good pub,
Oh, I enjoyed it. It's like, so it was my granddad's pub. So when he stopped going, I just, I continued doing it. And plus I knew people there. But me and my mate, we all had nicknames for each other. And I used to call him Flubber because he used to be able to spit in the ref's ear from from behind the goal. It was wonderful to watch. He'd do it and the ref would be like, just grab hold of his ear roll, because he was a pig. He really was a pig, but he protected me. He was a good lad. But I remember, like, it was nothing for me to have like 8 or 9 pints. And then that train ride, I used to live in Wimbledon at that time. So I used to ride the district line all the way back. Oh my God, mate. It was terrible. Terrible.
We used to end up, because a lot of my crew were from Hornchurch.
Uh-huh.
So we used to end up there a lot of times. And, they were quite nice pubs and stuff. Like we'd walk in, rabble, and all the rest of it. And if we'd won, I mean, me and my mate Rich and a couple of others, we used to be in the Duke till closing time.
Oh, yeah.
And there'd be loads of Indian dudes playing cards in there and all the rest of it. Because once West Ham cleared out, the locals would walk in.
Yep.
We knew everybody. It was all good. And but we used to stay in there and watch boxing. Like if there's a big fight on, they'd pull down a big screen, and it was great. It was like 2 different days out. You'd have the West Ham day, then everyone used to clear out around 6 o'clock, maybe 7, and then the locals used to walk in, and then it become East London again. I mean, good God! I mean, it was great fun. We knew the landlady Shelley. She died, bless her, a little while back. But that pub's no longer there. that went about a year before we moved to the Olympic Stadium.
That's sad.
So we moved to. Well, the thing is, it got really packed because the pub started closing. The Duke used to be quite an easy pub to walk. You stand at the bar and drink.
Mm-hmm.
Then really packed. So we kind of went to. If we got too busy, we'd ended up at the Green Man on Plashett Grove. That was a little bit out of the way. That was a nice little pub. Obviously, no longer there. Or we used to go up to the Denmark and by East Ham Tube Station.
Yeah. Yep.
And, so yeah, I mean, but yeah, primarily it was always the Duke, and that was our. We used to like get hammered there, and then if things got serious, we'd sit there all night. It was fantastic. And
I tell you, I've had a few after sessions at the Queens that were to die for, and I don't know how I got home. I mean, because basically, if I missed the last tube, I mean, I was screwed. I remember going back once and knocking on the pub door and saying, "Let me in," and they're like, "No, we're closed." I'm like, "I know you're not closed." And I'm like, "It's Wayne, I'm Flobber's mate," and they were like, "Oh, he's still in here." I'm like, "Well, let me in, will you?" But because I couldn't make it home because I mean the tube all the way to bloody, to Wimbledon, it was an hour and a quarter, something like that on it. During the day, and of course they stopped running a little after midnight, so I was stuck, and I would get skinful. And on those rare occasions where we'd won, the booze would be flowing.
Oh yeah.
What was your poison back then?
Well, in the early days, sort of mid '90s onwards, it was Carling Premier. I loved Carling Premier. I could drink 50 pints of that. It was great, and that it was kind of like for the American audience. It's Carling is a 4% pissy English lager that effectively is known as driving lager. And
it's terrible. So I used to grab a 4-pack of it and take it on the tube on the way to West Ham in the morning.
They got this widget in the pump, and it made it all smooth and everything else. And they brought it out for like Euro 96. So I used to drink that, and then after the game, if we won. I mean, I drank so much beer I couldn't drink anymore. So get on the old phone, get Uncle Jack on the phone, and Uncle Jack and Cousin Coke used to arrive, and it was. But they were back in the old sort of mid '90s club days in London.
Yeah.
And back then, the London club scene, but there was nothing like it. It was phenomenal. So I'd end up sort of like going to Fabric or the Ministry of Sound. If it got to around midnight and I was still able to sort of stand up and we'd won, off I'd go, and like whoever wanted to come with, we'd end up in the Ministry of Sound till like 6 a.m. And if you look back now, these were actually hellholes, but they were fantastic.
They were toilets. They were brilliant toilets though, weren't they? They were just brilliant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what young people do these days. I went back to London for my brother's wedding, about 4 or 5 years ago, last time I was home. And I was saying to my mate, well, why don't we go here? Why don't we go there? And all my mates were like, oh, that's now a Starbucks. That's now Pret. That's now the Apple Store. And I'm like, oh, God, like, no. And to me, it's like London used to be fantastic. It was such a shithole. It was phenomenal. And that was everywhere. Everywhere you went, nowhere was nice. Nowhere served food. It was just about getting a few beers, having a laugh, chatting up some girls, and you'd all be good. And it was a great night. No pretense, and it was fantastic.
It was a blast back then. It really was. I like you said, I remember going from pub to pub and then from club to club, and just having fun with it. We used to end up sometimes when we were like out real late. We used to go to a place off of Tottenham Court Road called the Grecian Inn.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, we go there. We'd drink some of their tiny little bottles of Skull, which was all you could buy there drink wise. And they did the worst taramasalata you could ever have in your life, which was bloody awful. But then we'd end up down at oh gosh, what's the market? What's the name of it? Can't bloody remember the name now. Smithfields. So yeah, I'm getting old and I'm losing the memory. But
well, you got down to the 24-hour calf down there.
Oh God, what a fry up!
Yeah.
What a fry up. Unbelievable. Double egg, double sausage, double beans, double everything.
Well, you're still alive and kicking. It's all good.
Yeah, then double freaking heart bypasses, 4 of them. So 40 years later. So yeah, so don't do that. If anyone's listening, don't do that. But here, who was your favourite player back then? If you could get completely ratted with one of the players from back then, that when you were going like week in week out, who would you get ratted?
If anyone says any other choice, it's simply I'm not a West Ham supporter. It's Frank McAvenny.
Oh God, yeah, because you'd pull some birds, you'd get his leftovers.
Oh mate, he would have the greatest night on the planet because he would know how to have a good time in the pub and in the club. He's like, I've never met him, and he's my all-time hero and everything else.
Me too.
But he was just some guy who got his chance, and he ended up in West Ham, and he was like, "Right, okay, then I'm really going to go for it here." He went all in. He loved the club, and he just loved everything that being a goal scorer for West Ham gave to him off the field as well.
The man was just magical.
People don't remember how good a footballer that guy was. Everyone sort of remembers him for the partying and all the rest of it. But you know what? No wonder he drank so much off the field because he never stopped running. He must have been thirsty. So
that's a good excuse for it.
If you were looking for someone who embodied everything with the West Ham way, from the street, basically no qualifications, had to work for everything he got, then finally he got it, and then he carried on, and then he made himself great. To me, that is the West Ham way.
Yeah, completely.
And, I mean, you look at all these players. I mean, Billy Bonds, not the most gifted, never played for England, all of that business. Such a hard worker. Julian Dix, another one, didn't stop. David Cross didn't stop running. People that weren't naturally gifted but somehow ground out a great career. And he, for me, it would be Frank McAvenny. But I mean, I used to always sort of like compare him. A few of my mates were Arsenal supporters and Tottenham supporters. They were winning shit and all the rest of it. I said, yeah, but you don't have real players like the great Frank McAvenny.
Yep.
Like, you show me a real player. Like, and so I was just sort of like be proud of, that kind of 85, 86 team was, has-beens, never will be's, and somehow we managed to run it close, give everyone a good run for their money. So
the boys of 86, it was just a phenomenal year. It's funny how you get to know people differently when you're winning than when you're losing.
I remember distinctly walking out against the Ipswich game, and then my granddad goes, "You know what? We might actually do this." And I'd never heard him actually say anything positive about West Ham for years. And because he was to say, "Don't get excited. They probably won't win." That was basically the sort of the paradigm that everybody had in the terraces. They would show up out of habit, but not expect anything. And I think that's the difference between West Ham then and West Ham now.
You mentioned your granddad. My granddad always said to me, he says, "Why worry? You're a long time dead and you're soon forgotten." And so we would go, we'd have a laugh. He said to me, right, I remember the first time, I can't remember who it was we got beaten by, but the first time I was really gutted at losing. And he sat me down and he's like, "Look," he says, "you can't let it get you like this." He said, "Go, have fun, enjoy the good times, and enjoy your friends in the bad times." He says, "Because quite frankly, you're going to have more bad times." He says, "So it's all about your mates and having a laugh."
Well, that's it. I've always thought as West Ham as a state of mind rather than actually a game.
Yeah.
And, when I say, right, okay, I'm going to West Ham. So I know that I am going to get up, I'm going to go and I'm going to have a calf. And for the American audience, that's like a fried breakfast. So I'm going to have a calf.
Yeah, like Denny's or IHOP.
Yeah, I'm
only 100 times better.
Yeah. I'm going to have a calf. Then I'm going to go to the pub and put a couple of bets on, go to the game, go back to the pub, probably have a curry, then go back, and to me, that's going West Ham.
Yeah.
And to me, it was a day or a state of mind rather than actually a game. I've never actually showed up to a game, watched the game, and then left and done nothing other around the ground or with my mates or anything else. It's always been, well, I'm going to West Ham. So that meant from And it started around 9 in the morning.
But I mean, it's a different era, mate, isn't it? Let's be honest, it's a different era.
I've always been like, right, you can't win last week's game. It's done. So I was sort of, the past was great, superb, and it was amazing to be part of it. But I always think to myself, there's a 5-year-old kid that walks into the Olympic Stadium now and has the same feeling I did when I walked into Upton Park.
Yep.
With his dad. And one day I'll do it. My youngest, I've got 3 kids. My eldest girl is 8. I've got Ivy, and my 5-year-old girl, Betty, she's 5. But my youngest Harrison, Harry, he's 3. So one day I've said to him, I'll take you all to the game and you can see, and I'll take you past where, we all used to live in Canning Town and where West Ham used to play, and then we'll go to the game at the Olympic Stadium. And they sit and watch it on a Saturday morning for about 5-10 minutes, and they know it's where Nan comes from, it's where Dad comes from. And that's the link. Right, you sent me. What's the craziest drunken time you've had for West Ham related to West Ham?
Well, then, what was the craziest drunk time?
Oh, okay. If you insist, I'll tell you.
I do insist, mate.
Okay.
What's the name of my podcast? It's West Ham is why we drink, right?
Well, I think West Ham is why Samassi Abou drank. Do you remember Samassi Abou?
Yeah.
So I'm my old office where I worked was in Parker Street, Covent Garden, and next door was the old celebrity hotspot Browns.
Yep.
And we'd worked on this project for like 6 weeks, all weekends. We was in the office and everything else. We were there like late night, and you could hear the music thudding like through the wall. And so the final weekend of doing this project, my boss said, right, we can use the company membership to the club next door. You can all go in, full bar, don't worry about it, cards behind the bar. So in the VIP area, I'm having the time of my life. In walks this massive black guy. And I'm like, I recognise him from somewhere.
Oh, my God.
It took me about an hour, and then I realised it was Samassi Abou. Now, Samassi Abou, who played for West Ham in the late 90s, was he was from the Ivory Coast and was signed for like 50 quid and was one of like Harry Redknapp's waving of the wand. It actually turned out to be quite good. And I said to him, are you Samassi Abou? And he sort of looked at me and he understood the word Samassi Abou and he nodded his head. But he didn't speak much English. He only spoke French. One of the girls I worked with was in Paris and beautiful, so I called her over to translate. And he said, yeah. And it turns out he was Samassi Abou, played for West Ham.
Oh, my God.
So I said, yeah, we've got a car behind the bar, have a couple of drinks. About 2 hours later, I'm sat there fucking arseholed with Samassi Abou. And he remembered he could speak English. He thought I was all right, so he could speak a bit of English. I left about 2:30. Abou's having the time of his life on the dance floor. And I left because I was going to Highbury the following day for an FA Cup tie at noon kickoff.
West Ham?
Yeah. So,
and he was still drinking? Good God.
He was going mental on the dance floor, and this was like 2:30 in the morning. So I'm at Highbury. I'm right behind the goal. There's Abou at the corner. I said, "Oi, Samassi, remember me from last night?" He looked at me and gave the old thumbs up.
That's bloody hilarious, mate. Oh my God!
And but yeah, that's my craziest drunken time I've had.
Oh my God!
For West Ham fans everywhere, this is the ultimate football app for you. For match highlights, interviews, and the best West Ham videos and podcasts. Download the free COY Irons app now from the App Store and Google Play.
You know, on our show, we do like the top shelf and the dregs of the barrel.
Yeah.
In the whole season, the bloody the longest season of our lives, 2019 to 20, who would you say is your top shelf and who would you say are the dregs of the barrel of the year?
Top shelf, Susek. If you look over time in football, you've always got an enforcer. The
Yeah.
big successful teams. Like if you're looking at the last couple of decades, and we haven't had that really since Paul Ince, in my opinion, or maybe Steve Lomas in midfield. When we first got him on his debut, about 5 minutes in, he's almost scored with a bullet header. I'm like, hang on a minute.
Wasn't it a breath of fresh air?
Yeah. And his positional play, how we signed him, I'll never know. I think he's a shining light, and I couldn't believe how he looks like he's been there 10 years. I think he's great.
So
And if you want my dregs, bottom of the barrel.
You've got a choice there, mate. Come on, let's be honest.
God, I'm just going to go as a collective of the Manuel Pellegrini lack of character. I was so disappointed with him. I mean, I think everyone's bitching about Sullivan and all the rest of it. David Sullivan, you can't legislate for Manuel Pellegrini basically taking West Ham for a ride.
Oh, he did, completely.
And I think that's what he did. And you know what? He hired him in good faith. He threw money at the transfer market in good faith and trusted him.
He let him hire his best friend as freaking football director.
Totally. And Pellegrini let West Ham down. And and I'm kind of like, I'm not pro board, but I'm always objective and right. And at that thing, okay, Sullivan really rolled the dice on a world-class manager, but I think he was a square peg in a round hole. It is what it is, you know. We survive, we move on, we go again.
True. How do you feel about the season coming up? Come on, we haven't really seen much, and we've seen no movement in the transfer window at all.
I don't think we need to do much in the transfer window, really. I mean, I'm looking forward to Fornals' second season.
I love that lad.
He was a slow starter.
He's another one that plays with heart. You can tell he cares about what he's doing out there, and that's what I love about him.
Very professional. I'm looking forward to his second season. But I mean, Bowen can only get used to the Premier League. He can only grow. I mean, I think that's, great. More of the same from Susek, obviously, and he'll only get better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, just all I want is some stability. I don't like changing the manager. I don't care what anyone thinks of David Moyes. I think David Moyes is right for West Ham. He somehow gets a tune out of the board. Is he Alex Ferguson? No. They thought he was at one stage. And in my opinion, if Alex Ferguson hand-selected David Moyes to replace him at Manchester United,
there must be something good about him.
That's a good enough opinion for me.
I've still got the jury out on Moyes. He's saying all the right things. I like what he's done, since, we've come back. He seems to be getting them together. I'm like a tree in the window. It's like, if it goes well, I'll love him. And if it doesn't, I'll hate him. And I've always been that way. That's just the way
football,
I am.
Though, it's, these days it's so results. I mean, I can't imagine John Lyle lasting 5 minutes in this area.
No.
And I kind of go back and forth of where we're finishing the league. I mean, I predicted we'd finish third last season.
I think we said fifth.
Yeah, I was really hopeful. And at one stage, we were third. So I was right one day. But, I mean, nobody knows how this pandemic's affected anybody.
True.
So if you look at, some of the lads there, say Anderson. Anderson's from Brazil. He's a young man. He's away from his family. Brazil's really bad for the virus. You don't know what's going on with him and off the field. You
Very
can't.
true.
No amount of money is gonna put you in a good mood if you're isolated in a flat in an apartment in the Docklands, away from your family. And I think everyone just has to sort of get off everybody's back. These are human. This is flesh and blood.
He's no Macca, though, is he? Let's be honest here. Come on.
No, he's not.
He's no Frank McAvenny. He's no Julian Dix. He's no.
Yeah,
I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed. Of all the players, and we've had some real rank ones during the course of the last season. I'm probably more disappointed in him than anyone else, because he did show such great promise. Those first 6 or 7 matches he played for us, he looked brilliant. And then that first match he played for Moyes, where he came out and actually did something. But it's so hot and cold. So it's I don't know. I mean, I look at all of these rumors about possibly selling him, and I'm like, would it really make a blind bit of difference? So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not ready to give up on him yet. And West Ham are sort of kind of club we can't write off 40 million.
Oh, completely.
So I personally think Rice will be a West Ham player next season.
I do.
I've always been resigned to losing him. If we can keep him until he's 24, 25, I think we've done very well.
Yeah.
But I just hope he goes, if he does leave, go somewhere that you're going to play every week and win something. Go and make something of yourself.
And then go drinking once again. Hoy!
You doing the West Ham Way event this year?
Well, we were due to do it in Los Angeles this coming weekend.
Oh, gosh.
And, come what may, I mean, X and Dave can't get out here without 2-week quarantining.
True.
We were going to switch it back to Vegas, but the bar we had it in Vegas has got to be at 50% capacity, face masks, all the rest of it. The whole thing sounds miserable. So basically, when the pandemic hit, we'd sold like 20 tickets. So anyone that has got a ticket is about to get a refund. We'll look at it for later on in the season. I mean, Vegas was so much fun. It was great. For a bit of a thrown together shit show, it actually worked. And I mean, I won't pretend to. I know how to organise a party. I like sitting in my back garden on my own most of the time. That's but yeah, it was really good. And it was just a statement to say that West Ham got 100 people, more or less, to a venue to have an event. The only negative of the whole event was NBC totally ignored us.
Yeah.
West Ham totally ignored us. And in the start of the next season, they had NBC sent cameras to a Manchester City v Arsenal game, and there was like 20 people in this pub in Atlanta. And West Ham had 100 people from all over America in Vegas, and they wouldn't even respond to many messages, and that kind of tells you where you sit, in
the big scheme of things. We're always going to be a small club as far as people are concerned up in the media.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. I mean, it's never anybody has ever said it's going to be easy being a West Ham fan, have they? Never.
Well, no, it's the beauty of it. I mean, I met up with one of the guys from St. Louis, Dave Sperry, good guy, Dave.
Oh, Dave's a brilliant guy.
And he popped out for a conference. I met up with him on Friday night. We had a few beers and a Crown and Anchor just off the Vegas Strip. And to me, that's West Ham. And it goes back to West Ham is rather a state of mind than it is a football match, So it actually worked out all right. And Dave and X talk about it all the time on their radio show. So me, I was kind of stressed out about it on the day. I just wanted to be perfect, which it never would be. I still got to get T-shirts to everybody that I promised them, and all of that sort of stuff. So there's still sort of little bits and bobs, but I did my best. And Von, who owns Blondies, me and him are really good mates. He just did it at the cheapest price possible because he knew he would have 100 people in there at a dead time zone, and after the open bar finished, tabs would open up. And that's what happened, and that's where he made his money.
You can't say enough about the pub and the bar owners here in the States, the way they've opened up their doors to us. I mean, our pub, McSwiggan's in Dallas, is, it doesn't matter what time of the game starts, they open for us. I'm just hoping that they can stay afloat during this whole time. And it's just like you said, it's family. It's you become part of a big family. And that's what's really important. And that's what's special about West Ham United is we're one great big dysfunctional frigging pissed up family who have a laugh. It really is who we are. And you've got to love it. It's like, I've met characters like yourself, people from all over the States, people on American Hammers Network. Just good people. And the only thing we've got in common is West Ham United. And it's a special team.
West Ham seem to attract the same sort of person. I mean, Tottenham to me attract pricks. Right, so no matter where you are in the world, you show me 10 Tottenham supporters, I will show you 8 pricks. 2 of them will be all right, but like,
I know. I've only ever met 2 Tottenham supporters who I actually like.
Yeah.
and I'm 55 years old.
You show me 10 West Ham supporters, and I'll show you 10 people I can sit down and have a drink with and find something really in common.
That brings us pretty much to the end of this episode, Matt. I've got to thank our partners on the podcast, Hammers Poles and ComeOnYourIrons.com. Thank all of our listeners. And don't forget, and I'm going to remind you as well, John, if you haven't gone to Apple Podcasts and rated and reviewed us really well, you better get out there and do it, mate.
1 star.
if you're only doing 1 star when I see you, I'm going to piss on you.
Yeah, I'm a mean drunk.
John,
I'm a mean drunk.
John, it was a blinder having you on the pod today. It really was an absolute blinder. Thank you so much for doing this. We've got a tradition at the end of our podcast where we raise our glasses and say cheers. So you got your glass in your hand?
Hang on, I've got to pour some whiskey. Hang on.
Oh, you better not shortchange me on it.
Can you hear that?
I can hear that. Sounds lovely, mate.
We've been on so long, I've got no ice left. Hang on.
Cheers.
Bubbles in the air, they fly and so high. Like my dreams, they fade and die. Life just always.